Imagine living in a world where your every move, from where you live, to the school you attend, to the job you hold, is decided by the color of your skin. This was the reality for millions of South Africans living under the brutal system of apartheid. But how did this system come to be, and what were its effects on the people of South Africa and the world at large? Apartheid, a term derived from the Dutch word for apartness, was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination that existed in South Africa from 1948 until the early 1990s. This policy was enforced by the National Party government, a body dominated by the white minority, with the objective of sustaining white supremacy and control over the country's resources. The apartheid era saw non-white South Africans, including Black Africans, coloreds or mixed-race individuals, and Indians, subjected to a myriad of oppressive conditions. Forced removals, segregation in all aspects of life, and limited access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities were the norm. The apartheid government implemented laws such as the Group Areas Act, which designated specific areas for different racial groups, and the Population Registration Act, which classified individuals into racial categories. Despite the severe repression, resistance against apartheid was relentless. The African National Congress, or ANC, founded in 1912, emerged as the leading anti-apartheid organization, advocating for equal rights and justice for all South Africans. The resistance against apartheid was not confined within the borders of South Africa. The struggle gained international attention and condemnation, leading to economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation of the country. Inside South Africa, the resistance movement grew stronger, fueled by the courage and determination of activists like Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and Walter Sisulu, among others. The turning point in the fight against apartheid came in the late 80s. The apartheid regime faced increasing internal unrest, economic pressure, and diplomatic isolation. In 1990, then-President F.W. de Klerk announced the unbanning of the ANC and other liberation movements, and the release of Nelson Mandela from prison after 27 years of incarceration. This marked the beginning of negotiations for a transition to democracy. Apartheid was universally condemned for its flagrant racism and human rights abuses. Public facilities such as schools, hospitals, beaches, and transportation were segregated, with separate facilities provided for different racial groups. The quality of facilities for non-white South Africans was significantly inferior to those for whites. Resistance efforts, both within South Africa and abroad, coupled with economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure, eventually led to the dismantling of apartheid. In the early 90s, negotiations between the apartheid government and the ANC led to the end of apartheid and the beginning of a new era of democracy in South Africa. In 1994, South Africa held its first fully democratic elections, in which people of all races were allowed to participate. The ANC won a decisive victory, and Nelson Mandela became the country's first Black president. The transition to democracy marked the end of apartheid and the beginning of a new era of hope, reconciliation, and nation-building in South Africa. However, the process of reconciliation and transformation continues to this day, with ongoing efforts to address the legacies of the past, promote social justice, and build a more inclusive society. In conclusion, apartheid was a dark chapter in South Africa's history. It was a system that entrenched racial discrimination and inequality, and its effects are still felt today. However, the struggle against apartheid also demonstrated the power of resistance, the strength of the human spirit, and the possibility of change. As we reflect on this history, it serves as a stark reminder of the importance of fighting against injustice, standing up for equality, and striving for a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect.